Now, the next speaker is one of my first volunteers with GPS, a very good friend. And let me tell you something about Mike. You know, all you guys are walking around pretending to be busy and working really hard, okay? Mike sits around all the time, but has done more than almost anybody in this room, I'll guarantee that. Mike is one of the most driven people you will ever meet. The first time I saw Mike, and because he was in a wheelchair, I attempted to open the door for him. Mike raced past me, rode me over, and went and opened the door for me. After that day, I've never tried to help Mike. I let him help me all the time. Mike, come on out. Mike's a little nervous now, so be nice to him.
Good afternoon, folks. It really is a privilege to stand here before you, standing in a different kind of way than some people see, I guess. But the fact of it is, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Mike Jones today, on the journey that I have. But to be able to tell you of the journey, I need to turn the clock back several years. You know, the thing about it is when I go back several years, I felt like at that particular time in my life, everything was going great. You know, after I got out of service, I went to work with JCPenney, and at JCPenney Company, after several years working there, I fell in love with this lovely young lady there. After several months of dating and everything, we decided we was going to get married. And during that period of time, a good friend of mine decided to come by and said, well, there's an opportunity to go out and maybe buy some convenience stores and change our vocation a little bit. During that same time, though, my sweet wife and I had found this cute little house that we thought we would love to purchase and be able to find a home and settle down at that particular time. Well, that was great. But one Friday night, though, in my life, that we was closing our little grocery store, our last customer had came in. We was walking out into the parking lot that night. And as our last customer got her car into the parking lot and started out onto the street that night, all of a sudden we heard this big, and that big bang we thought was her old car backfiring. But as we looked to the left and see that backfire of a car, we heard this second bang and realized we saw a flash from something out into the woods, realizing it was not a backfire from a car. It was a gunshot. Oddly enough, at that time, 3 men was off into the patch of the woods. 2 of the men came forward, came across the street, and laid the pistol on top of my head and advised the people that was with me that they'd making the wrong moves. They'd remove my head from my body. That same time, though, they reached down and got the money bag. I carried a gun. They got this down. And just in minutes, you see stuff on TV that happens about that quick. That's about how quick it seemed to us as they got and left. The police was up the street, actually heard the gunshot. They arrived on the scene pretty fast. Needless to say, when the ambulance people arrived on the scene, I was conscious, but I was in like a kind of a daze. They started going with vital signs. I had no blood pressure, had no pulse. They couldn't even find a heartbeat at that time. But as we got to the hospital, the nurses started taking my clothes off, preparing me for surgery. And she said, Mr. Jones, I thought you were shot in the left side over here at that time. I said, I was, but she said, you're bleeding from the right arm. Not realizing at that time when the guy reached down to get the money bag and the shoulder holster, he took a second smaller caliber pistol to finish me off and shot me in the right side. At that particular time, though, I was went into surgery, but the next time I came to was probably another one of those frightening times in my life. They had me on a paralyzing drug, so when I came to, I could not feel anything from the top of my head to my tip of my toes. They even had my eyes taped down, and to be honest with you, I thought I'd passed on and left this world. But I could hear people talking in the background, but then I heard a beeping sound, and needless to say, somebody came over and said, Mr. Jones, you're in the High Point Regional Recovery Room. Everything's going to be all fine. Well, the next thing that I remember coming to several days after that, realizing that the bullet that went in my left hip shattered in several pieces across my abdominal, and it went into different places in my stomach. But during that second time, from the navel of my stomach to the tip of my toes, I could feel nothing. I could feel nothing in my right arm, my right hand. It was like a person who had a stroke. At that particular time, I realized that I had some really challenges to go out there. But after many months of therapy, back and forth as an outpatient, I went to see my doctor for a regular checkup. Wasn't prepared for that day because I felt like I'd done pretty good about doing the therapy and all. But that day I went to the doctor and I got the news I wasn't prepared for. He said, Mike, you know, I've been going through back and forth. And he said, but guess what? I think the best thing for you to do is to go home and draw a disability check. I don't think you can be able to do any better than that. Folks, I'll be honest with you. I'm a believer. I believe that the Lord had helped me through that process. And I thought, well, if I must have anything better to do, I should have died on the parking lot that night. But you know, I was really bummed that night and went home. But you know, several days later, a good friend of mine happened to be a doctor. I went and called him up and asked him if he could get me an appointment at Whitaker Rehabilitation Center in Winston. He did. They got me a 3-week evaluation. Went to go to Whitaker Rehabilitation, and guess what? Stayed not 3 weeks, but stayed 4 months. During that 4-month stay, though, I did a lot of testing with psychologists, psychiatrists, occupational and physical therapy during that period of time. And all enough, also, we went to an open exploratory surgery. And yes, I survived 4 code blues. During that time, there was a lot happened in my life, a lot in my body, and physically my mind was really challenging. But I still have the belief that there was a reason for that. I think you grow from certain situations. After though, when I started leaving, discharged from the hospital, they felt like that, you'll be able to find a job pretty soon. Well, after I left there, I started to say, out looking for employment. During employment, I realized that, you only have a high school education, son, you need more education. Going back to GCCC, I got an associate degree in business administration, went to Winston-Salem State University and got a BS in psychology. After that period of time, then I said, well, I was ready to go to work. Went out and signed up with 2 employment agencies. During that period of time, though, not a single opportunity knocked on the door from these employment agencies. The thing about it was, I sent resumes, made phone calls. I went to places where I had to drag the wheelchair up in steps and trying to get interviews. But from the day that I landed on the parking lot to I landed my first job was 11 years. Yes, challenging and struggling, disheartening at times, but I had to realize that there was something else to be had during that time, because I found that something else could happen. During that same period of time, though, after my wife and I, we were trying to have children. Yes, 6.5 years of infertility testing, surgery. We finally got the word, infertility. It was hard, because when my sweetie would go to different places, they wouldn't know when we was having children, when we were going to have children, you know. And especially Mother's Day was not a special time for us at that time, because it was not a special time. But a sweet wife I had and a real driver in my heart and in my life. I don't apologize, I just say this, I've been blessed. The facet of it is, so during that period of time also, a lot of things else happened in my life. The fact of it was, I ended up having diagnosed of prostate cancer in 2005. Well, I went and had surgery and had it removed. 2006, I found out after many different type of tests and did a bone marrow test and everything, I found like I had leukemia. A year after that time, then after I found out I had leukemia, then I found out I had melanoma on the back. Went in and cut. A lot of things were going on, so they took care of the melanoma. You know, during that time, though, as we was going through the melanoma, found out also during that period of time that American Express was going to close down. And here I was going to lose my job at the end of the year. So my mind had been really tracing up and down. But good old Dr. Chinnasamy came at the same time and was asking me about, would you like to join GPS team? And I said, what in the world would I be doing at Cancer GPS? He said, well, are you a cancer survivor? Yes, I said, yes. But he said more than that. He said, you know, it's about this thing called head and heart. And I really believe that's what it is today, about all of us in this room here today, whatever our situation is, our head and our heart. It's the fact of it is I was hoping that I was thinking at the same time when he came to me about, is there something that old Mike Jones can share, encourage, provide hope through what little things that I've happened in my life, maybe would give somebody else something to give them encouragement? I would hope that that's what would happen to me. But you know, it's kind of funny. I'm now supposedly director of, I'm not good on titles, director of Cancer GPS. Yes, and a PS. I have 4 little grand boys. Because the fact of it was, through that process, after we went through all the infertility tests and all, they decided, well, what about adoption? Adoption doesn't sound too bad. We signed up with 2 agencies. You were too old. Okay. But 2.5 years into the adoption process, we brought a 3-month-old little girl from Colombia, South America. It was Bogota, which is the drug capital of the world, but she wasn't drugs. She made us feel like drugs because she blessed us with so much joy and love through that process. But you know, the fact of it is, through that whole process, joining GPS and hearing some of the speakers already today, we know that we live in an environment where 10 years ago we probably would ask anybody, do you know anybody that has cancer? And they'd probably say no. But you know, today, I don't believe you could ask anybody today across the land saying, do you know anybody that has cancer? And most likely they probably would say yes. They probably would know that. And you know, the thing about it is, GPS, we are a support group, and we do love different situations. We love people. But you know, the thing about it is, we believe one thing. Family, friends, and even strangers have always informally mentored cancer patients, but paying forward their experiences, that's the big thing. They do not have the experience, and they do not have actually the understanding of what cancer patients go through. You know, that's where we in GPS have come about realizing that we want to step forward. We want to be able to help and support that situation. Mentors applications may be approved by our oncologist. We go by a background check. We also go back and try to find out the situation about what kind of training they need and what kind of education they have. Also, mentors are trained initially and given support and additional training as needed. You know, I think that is, it's the fact of what the individual person that does mentoring or the person that volunteers with us are able to go out and meet the needs of those cancer patients. Once a mentor candidate has completed training, we connect them with an individual patient, a newly diagnosed patient, and hopefully during that period of time, during that journey, they'll be able to help and assist, encourage, and provide hope to that newly impatient person. Mentoring and patients are matched based on what? Several criteria, including sex, background, what kind of cancer they have, and also what type of enjoyments they do, as far as they like reading books or whatever kind of hobbies they like to have. We'd like to mentor them too. I want to read a thing about listening to testimony from Paul, a lung cancer survivor. Quote, who can truly understand what you are feeling, the uncertainty, the not having control? How can you describe how you are feeling to your loved ones, your friends? Do they know what it's like to be diagnosed, to live with cancer, to feel like a toxic dump site, to go through the multitude of tests, surgery? It's true that family and loved ones offer as much love and support as they can. They live through this with us. They go to our appointments. But GPS mentors have lived it. They understand what you're feeling. They know what it's like from the inside. They lived in your shoes. They can help with the mental and emotional stress of this evil known as cancer in ways that can't. End of quote. We recognize also at GPS that we call what we call mini mentoring. Yes, we still connect people with that newly diagnosed cancer patients with mentors. We find also with our volunteers and our staff people, we have a lot of opportunity on our volunteer staff going into the cancer center in our resource room, going back and having our appointments for our survivorship programs on second Monday of each month. We find that we have mentoring opportunities there. And also, most of all, in the chemo room is mentoring deal. I'd like to share an example of what it is, and I say that, share this with you is not to say Mike Jones, but to show you what it happens. You know, many mentoring comes because of different ways. All of us that have cancer, we all respond differently, different times or whatever. But I'll say Mr. X, and this has happened just 2 weeks ago. Mr. X had been coming in the chemo room for 4 weeks. And each week he'd come, he wore a ball cap, he was by himself. And he was just going through his own challenges. But the thing about it happened, every time we'd go by to speak to him and try to offer him anything, he'd shake his head. Well, the 4th week he was there. Well, we was bringing around donuts that day, and I was talking to the lady next door in the next chair, and he heard me say something about a chocolate coconut donut with nuts on top of it. He looked up and he looked like somebody gave him a shot of cocaine or whatever it was. He was on the high there. Well, guess what? When I got to him that day, you know what? Believe it or not, that was his antidote, because from that point on, for an hour and 20 minutes, we had a conversation. And that conversation meant to the fact of it was, when we started that conversation, it was like the fact that he kept shy, but this guy, excuse me, this is not a sexist remark, but sometimes as guys, we don't want to share a tear, you know. But, you know, he was trying to hide that tear. And he kept saying, I'm sorry that I'm really crying. I said, but, you know, the bad part about what you're saying is, who says you can't cry as a man? Society tells you that, don't it? But you know, the fact of it is, it's what's inside here, as I said a little earlier, and what's in here, what matters of the fact of it is. If you need to cry, then you need to cry. And the facet of it is, that's exactly what we did. Now me and Mr. X, every time he comes in, he doesn't call me. He has to give me a hug. And that's special. GPS, that's where we are. We believe that every single person needs to be a mentor. To have a mentor. Because the facet is, not all of us open up and express those concerns in those situations at different times in our journey. I know there's several people in here that are staff members, people that are support staff, people that are nurses, even seeing some of the doctors in here today. And you know, we at Cancer GPS are blessed to be able to work with a staff like this. Because as one of the Dr. Chinnasami's partners said, I heard that person say just the other day in a meeting, that each person that comes into the Cancer Center is an individual person. And that individual person is not a number, but an individual with a name. And they are a survivor when they come through that door and enter to the Cancer Center. Because with the support of the staff we have, with the nurses, with the doctors, the support staff, they're all about caring and providing hope and encouragement. We're blessed. I'm blessed because when I leave in a day's time, you know what it is? I accused Dr. Chinnasami of giving me a drug because you know what? I come with an empty cup and my cup overrunneth when I leave each day. Because these people open their heart and trust us to share those intimate situations. And those situations maybe some little thing we say or do could bring joy, hope, and peace. So if you want to feel that your cup is empty today and you want to get a cup full, give us a call. We'd love to connect you. We'd love for you to share your story and love to let you know that, you know, cancer is a bad thing, but we can provide hope through each day that we meet. Thank you so much.